Welcome to the High Sensory Mothers podcast with Karen Hunt, a supportive space dedicated to mothers with high sensory intelligence. Each week, I'll share insights from my own experiences and those of my clients, alongside empowering conversations with inspiring guests who offer practical wisdom and guidance. Together, we'll help you embrace your sensitivity so you can thrive, not just in motherhood, but in your life and business too. Welcome back to the High Sensory Mothers podcast. This is episode 2. We're going to talk about managing overwhelm as a high sensory mother. Last time, we talked about what it means to be high sensory and that it's the same as being a highly sensitive person, but it has a more positive reframe. Not using the word sensitivity helps there. I talked a bit about my story. And today we're going to look into one of the big downsides of being an HSP, which is overwhelm. Something that I've struggled with my whole life, and I know a lot of other HSPs really struggle with this too. When we become a mother, we have even more things we need to do, even more demands on our time. And so that can be even more overwhelming. So we're going to look at overwhelm in terms of your role as a mother, as well as just generally in your daily life and also in your work life, in your business. So why is it that we get overwhelmed as high sensory mothers? I think partly it's because we care so deeply about everything that we are processing more deeply than most people. And we also think more deeply than a lot of people. And that can, of course, lead to overthinking. So, because of all that, we're just processing more. We process more sensory information from our surroundings, and we process more in terms of our own thoughts and ideas about things, whether that's business ideas, whether it's how we should parent, whether it's our relationships or the causes that we care about, the situation in the world, politics, social justice, whatever it is, we think about it a lot and we care about it a lot. And naturally, when you layer all these things onto your everyday life of the things that you need to do, when you have a family, when you have a business, obviously it's just a lot. And so that tends to be why I think we get overwhelmed so easily. So personally, I've found that now my children have not exactly left home. One has the others partly in, partly out currently. It's a lot easier for me not to get overwhelmed because I can not take them out of the equation because they both still need me in different ways. And so it's not that my role has completely changed, but there's obviously a lot less that I need to do on a day-to-day basis with older children. So that's really helped me manage overwhelm. But when my children were younger, and I remember a point when I had a full-time job and I had a business and I had young children and a husband, I think it's safe to say I was overwhelmed a lot. I had more energy, I suppose, because I needed it. I was younger, so I was able to deal with these things. But looking back, I would say that I would have been better off in the long run had I addressed my overwhelm sooner than I did. So let's have a look at some ways to manage overwhelm. The way I look at it is that you have some immediate, in the moment coping techniques that you can draw upon to help with overwhelm right now. then there's something that you can do which will help prevent you being in that state of overwhelm too often. We'll look at both areas. So, first of all, let's look at some immediate coping techniques, if you like. I think I mentioned this last time about taking a deep breath, or not even a deep breath. All you need to do is just be aware of your breath. Awareness is such an important thing to bear in mind. And when you focus a bit more deeply on your breath in terms of a specific breathing technique or just breath work in general, and I find that's really helpful in the moment because it just grounds you in that moment. You're taking your attention away from the thinking because the overwhelm is generally a thought or lots of thoughts because there's lots of things that perhaps need to be done, or there's lots of thoughts swirling around in your mind because there's a decision to make. Whatever is causing that overwhelm, by focusing in on your body with your breath, it's so accessible. You breathe all the time, and we just don't pay enough attention to it. But when you do, you can't really focus on something else, especially if you engage in some more intense breath work. So that's really a useful thing to do. And in fact, any way you can ground yourself is going to be useful. If you can get out in nature, particularly, and if you can stand with your bare feet on the ground, whether that's earth, grass, or sand, or what have you, that's really good again because you're connecting with the earth and you can just focus on your body and that connection. And that helps you get out of your head and into your body more. If you're lucky enough to have some sunshine, being in the sun is great. Just a few moments. And this is the thing with these sorts of immediate techniques, they don't take long at all. And what I do now is I've got within my day these moments when I go outside and I walk the dog and I just have these experiences several times a day where I'm looking at the sky, I'm looking into the distance, I'm observing the trees, the birds, the flowers, whatever is around me, because it gets me out of my mind and into the wider, bigger picture. And something I'd like to talk a little bit about now is when you have a vision for your life, for something that is really meaningful to you that you'd like to bring out into the world, a business or a cause, you have this sort of bigger vision. It's important to obviously work on that vision in small steps and stages, but also keep in mind that big vision. And so I think it's quite useful to use this as an analogy that if you go outside and you're looking out into the distance, as far as your eye can travel, you can bring to mind your big vision. And then when you need to ground or just get out of that whirring mind and deal with the overwhelm, you focus in on the breath, you focus on the smallest thing. You know, you're breathing constantly and it's a minute thing and it's a quick thing. And that's like the small steps that you have to take in order to achieve that big vision that you have. And both of them are really important and you need to balance both of those. And so I find that's a really useful thing to do, to build into your day these small moments. I think I probably mentioned I really love essential oils and they're a wonderful thing to do. If you don't live or work in a place that's that accessible, if you can't easily get outside in a beautiful natural setting, then bringing the beauty of nature inside into your own environment is a wonderful thing to do. And you can do that with pure essential oils. You can select the oils depending on what it is that you want to do. I'll probably do an episode on essential oils specifically because there's so much to learn about those. But if you do already use them, then they can be really helpful, especially when you want to focus on your breath and you want to just take a moment. If you don't have time to do like a 10-minute breath routine, you can just take a few breaths using essential oils. So it's important to focus on the small things that you can do on a daily basis, multiple times a day, ideally, that remind you to get back into your body and step away from all the busyness, all the things that are going on in your mind, all the things that you have to do. So that's a few ideas for things that you can do in the moment. But let's talk about things you can do on a longer term basis. What I found to be really helpful is to create a more simple, sensory friendly home environment and work environment too. So, what does that mean? It means reducing clutter. It means simplifying your routines. It means really focusing in on what your priorities actually are and get really strict on that. Accept where you are. Understand that it takes time to get to this big vision that you have. Perhaps you have a vision for what your family life looks like, what your business looks like. It takes a lot of small steps to get to achieve that big vision, and it doesn't happen overnight. You have to make consistent moves towards that. And if you can simplify things and if you can prioritize what's really important and not get pulled into distraction, then that's really going to serve you well. I don't want you to cheat yourself out of your big vision because you've got so much busyness going on in your life. I want you to hold that vision or create that vision. Dream about what that is, what that looks like for you. And then you can take small steps. You don't have to have everything planned out. You just have to do something. In order to establish this long-term view, this long-term vision of preventing you from getting overwhelmed so often, what you can look at are your routines, your daily routines, your weekly routines, monthly, quarterly, annual, all sorts of ways you can look at this, but I don't want to get you overwhelmed with that. You can start small. It doesn't matter where you're at. If you know that there's something that you've been thinking about doing or that you know would be helpful for you, whether that's doing a bit of exercise or movement every morning or journaling or whatever it is, just start, do something, start something. You need to have the tricky conversations with those people in your life that perhaps need to help support you more. If that feels too difficult, then you need to start by understanding that you need more support. As a high sensory mother, you need more support than other mothers. That's just the way it is. You have this genetic trait and you process more than other people. So, of course, you do need to have more support. Now, often it can be tricky to have conversations around that because perhaps you don't really feel like you deserve more support or you feel worthy of that. So that's another conversation. And perhaps that's where you need to start building that up within yourself, building up that worthiness muscle. But if you are feeling like you need that support and you deserve that support, then you need to have those conversations with perhaps a partner or family members. Before you talk to them, you need to really have this conversation with yourself, because you need to establish what your priorities are and what your boundaries are. So once you've come to some kind of conclusion about what that looks like for you, then you can have those conversations and lay out what it is that you think you need and ask for that support. So that's a sort of a bigger picture, a longer term practice to help with overwhelm. So there's a lot. I acknowledge that. And it is a journey, and it can take many years to get to a place where you rarely get overwhelmed. It's not an easy journey, but it is important. It's so imperative, because honestly, it's very difficult to create the change and do the things you want to do if you don't address these issues. So overwhelm is a really important thing to address. There are lots of ways you can do that. You need to get the support in order to do that, and that looks very different for different people. So I'm going to invite you to pick something, whether it's something I've suggested or it's something that has been niggling at you for some time, or that you know you used to do and you don't do anymore. I want you to pick something that you can rely on, that you can use when you get overwhelmed. So that's a small thing that you can do in the moment. Write it down, make a note on your phone, or journal on it, or whatever works for you. It could be a post-it note somewhere. Maybe it's a particular trigger that you have and that you need to work on, but pick something and just get started with it. If you feel like you're good with things in the moment, what you really need to do is to tackle a bit more prevention in the long run. Then get started there. Pick something that we talked about there to do. If you do need support, then let me know. I'd love to hear from you. You are most definitely not alone in this. This is very common. It's why I'm tackling it as one of the first things in the podcast. Boundaries is another big one, and we'll be tackling that one next week. But know that anything that you do, however small it is, anything that you do to help with this will pay you dividends in the long run. I promise you. So do get on and get started. I'm here cheering you on. I'd love to hear from you how you're getting on. So I hope that was helpful for you, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now. Enjoyed today's episode? If you haven't already, I'd be so grateful if you could subscribe and leave a quick review. It really does help other high sensory mothers discover this podcast. To stay connected, visit my website where you can sign up to receive episode updates straight to your inbox. Or book a free call if you're curious about working together. Thanks so much for listening, and I look forward to next time when I'll share more insights on embracing your high sensory gifts.